What does world-class real estate look like to you?
Try to combine old-fashioned traditional estate agent values, but with all the modern tech that can help you move that forward.
Excellent communication is at the heart of what they do.
Great real estate looks like strong leadership.
Consistency.
A special thanks to our sponsors, Iceberg Digital, for sponsoring this week's episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Martin. I'm joined by Mr. Ian Macbeth. We are face-to-face recording today's podcast in Watford, and we've got an episode that has a slightly different twist to our normal, very estate agency focused.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it has a twist, but it's relevant to the underbelly, isn't it? It's the foundations of every estate agency business, or your career for that matter, depending on what side of the fence you sit on.
And I think when you said about arranging today's guest, I think we both felt a little bit of selfishness about it, because we're looking to grow our businesses. We're looking for good people to join our businesses. So actually, let's sit here. Let's talk to, one of the top headhunters at Josh's company, and let's learn something about recruiting good people to our businesses. So I'm really looking forward to this chat from a selfish perspective as well. Yeah,
there's a few household recruitment names in the industry, and we've had Miles on from Crux, and Rainer Personnel is definitely another one of them that sits there, probably the two of the biggest ones, and it's good to pick their brains and see what goes on. So I'm looking forward to getting Morné on to talk about culture, touch a little bit on headhunting in London. I want to get an idea of the range of salaries. Is there a rule of thumb that they're looking towards? What are the features? For me, estate agency, I've had two lives. One before I was a parent, one after I was a parent. So I want to kind of touch on that as well. And I think, he's going to be a bumble of life. So it's going to be interesting to get him on and quiz him.
Let's get him on.
Morné, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am very well. Thanks for having me, gents. Real pleasure to be on today.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting topic. A little bit differently so far today. We've spoken agency, we've spoken training. Now we're going to touch on kind of culture and recruitment. So looking forward to that. But before we do, I did give you a slight heads up. Mark's always got a key question.
Yeah, welcome to the show. I think first South African on the podcast.
Oh, so, boom. Happy days.
Nice to have you on. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll start as we always do. What does world-class real estate look like to you, Morné?
I think for me, world-class real estate is essentially estate agency with a great culture, who care for their people, who care for their clients, who care for their customers, without just looking at the number at the end of the commission check. It's all about caring for everybody involved in the transaction, internally and externally.
Care is a nice word, actually. Don't often get that response. That's cool.
No, we don't, actually.
It was a different one, don't you?
Yeah.
We do always
We're all very different. And in terms of the care and the culture, obviously you're on the recruitment side of things. How important do you think that is from an employee's perspective, if they are looking for a new role and if they're interviewing with 2 or 3 agencies? How important do you think that culture is, and how do you think agencies can get that across to potential new hires?
I think culture is probably one of the most important things, not to be confused with the paycheck as well at the end of the day, because I think a lot of people think if we pay people well, it doesn't matter so much, or vice versa. We've got amazing culture, we've got, pizza nights and all that stuff, so we can pay people peanuts. I think culture, however, is absolutely so important. I mean, people coming through at the moment, they don't just look at what I'm going to earn. They look at the hours and all the other stuff, which I know also doesn't 100% relate to culture, but there is elements of that as well. So people take a lot of stuff into consideration, but the culture of the business, and if you've got a bad reputation, or if you've got a reputation for having a bad culture, it's very hard to win that back, so to speak. When you're
it gets out, doesn't it? It's a small industry, estate agency, and it fires out quite.
No, I agree. Also, one of the other things I think is culture is also very subjective as well, because different people have different needs. So for different people, some things will be acceptable. For other people, it won't be acceptable. So although it isn't always true what you hear on the street, you might speak to somebody who's worked for one of the big corporates or for a certain agent, and they might say, oh, it's a horrible place to work for X, Y, and Z reason. But, until you've actually worked there yourself, it is hard to say whether or not everything here is true. So I would definitely, get people not to listen to too many other people and go and have a conversation with whoever they want to talk to, because it's all about opportunity.
With regards to culture, I'm always interested to hear through the eyes of someone that has the conversations you have. When you're talking to staff, experienced agents, that are unhappy where they are, and they're kind of covertly asking you, what's on the radar, what's out there? What are the kind of primary reasons why people are unhappy in 2025? What have we experienced this year?
I think some of the weaker reasons, in my opinion, is they blame the market. Oh, the market's not so good. We're struggling with stock and et cetera, which might be a factor. There might be a valuer in the office that maybe isn't as sharp as 4 of the other values in the area, which will, in essence, then affect the market in that specific branch rather than the market in the greater area. But that's one. And then
does that translate to I'm not earning enough commission?
Yes, I think it does. But also, people want to be busy, and I think I actually spoke to somebody today who's been made redundant, believe it or not, and the excuse, or the reason, not the excuse, the reason, the reason was last in, first out, which kind of, I guess, is
life out.
Yeah. So, in that specific office, in that part of London, they have five negs in the office, and I think 5 negs at the moment in probably most offices, probably too many. But he was brought in not long ago, for all the reasons and promises they made. We're going to do this, we're going to build you up, we're going to, give you X, Y, and Z. And a few months later, the market's turned. Obviously, the budget might have had something to do with it, but in general, I think if you've got 4 negs, you probably have space for 5 negs. But it's kind of, in my opinion, it was a bit strange that they had so many negs in the first place. But yeah, so the reasons people wanting to leave is generally bad management, or maybe they had a fallout with the manager, so it's not always just the manager's fault. But essentially, that plays quite a big part. Commissions, issues with commissions, pool commissions. I think people generally, they get to the point where they're like, I've been in this office for X amount of time, and a couple of people aren't pulling their weight. So for that reason, I want to go work somewhere where I get my own personal commission. Which
do you find the people that are the best performers, that's where the frustration lies? If they're in that group commission,
absolutely,
they feel like they're carrying everyone, and at some point they're going to go, do you know what? This is not acceptable anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, I personally, having worked in agency myself as well, I've never ever been a fan of pool commission. I could never work somewhere where there's pool commission. I would rather have 1 month of, rice. I almost said rice and beans. I've been watching Celebrity, by the way. 1 month of beans on toast, for not having done any deals myself, than expect a cut of somebody else's paycheck, and vice versa. I would, it is a bit dog eat dog. Maybe it sounds a bit dog eat dog, but I think cream always rises to the top. And if you go out and you do the most viewings, make the most phone calls, then you're going to be the best in the office. But pool commission for me is a big red flag.
Do you find that differs a little bit city to non-city? Like, do you feel that's quite a London sort of culture?
Maybe. I mean, to be fair, most of the people I've had conversations in regards to pool commission with have been people that aren't necessarily operating in prime central London, or in London for sure. But there are still a couple of businesses in London that do pool commission, and it is a tougher sell for the best people in the business. Obviously, if there's somebody new into agency, or somebody who has maybe not historically set the world on fire, they might look at it as like a chance to come in and, make a bit of money and maybe set themselves up, etc., etc. So I guess there's a place for it, but it's, yeah.
Interesting. And then in terms of, like, if we took a classic branch manager or a valuer, you know, a classic valuer, for example, seasoned pro, you know, let's call them a 10-yearer. They've been doing it for 10 years. What is the sort of, take London out of the equation maybe, but what is the kind of the landscape of earnings? Is it really crazy, the difference, or is it run of the mill, you know, most valuers 10 grand either side of 50k, or do you find it that it's very different depending on agency to agency, or is there a rule of thumb for each title?
No, I mean, to be fair, I mean, within agency, there's so many different job titles for different roles. I think mostly, you said take London out of it. I mean, London is sort of the area I specialise in most, so it'd be hard for me to do that completely.
Let's do it the other way. Focus only on them.
So in London, with a lot of independent estate agents, senior negotiators value as well. So being a senior neg, you get to value and you get to sell. So that's probably a bit of a sweet spot. And a lot of people that work in those roles don't always see it that way, because, you know, you want your business card, if people still have business cards, you want your business card to say senior valuer or whatever, because it sounds a lot better. And on your LinkedIn profile, valuer West London or whatever it is. But actually, some of the corporates, they do the more sort of everybody stays in their lane. So you've got the manager who manages the office, also does some of the bigger valuations. Then you'll have a valuer that obviously does the vals, and then you'll have a neg or 2 or 3 that goes out and does the viewings, and then either brings the offer to the valuer or the manager to put forward, depending on how long that neg's been there. But I think in terms of earnings, the landscape is so broad, you know, from agency to agency, because some agencies will have different commission structures and different ways of working. You might, as a senior neg, where you're like a valuer and a negotiator, you'll get paid if you bring a property on and you sell or let that property, you'll get the neg comms and you'll get the valuer comms. Or if you bring it on and somebody else lets it or sells it, then you'll get the valuer comms and they'll get the neg comms. So those models tend to work quite well, because it's nice to do a double bubble, you know, get 17.5% for a deal rather than just the 10% or just the 7.5% you might get as a valuer. But yeah, I mean, it's so broad. Some valuers might earn 40 grand, you know, working in West London, where other negs or other valuers might earn 80 grand. It's literally depending on how good the businesses that you're working for and where they sit in the market and the stock they get through, the amount of bread and butter stuff and the higher end stuff. If there's a nice mix, it gives you a good chance. But if you only operate on one sort of tier, it makes it a bit more trickier. So, you know, if you value only to say £2 or £3 million stock, you know, the likelihood is you're probably not going to sell as many. But depending on obviously where in London you are.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And you mentioned title and business card titles. How much of an important factor is that for recruits now? Would somebody typically move just to have a better title, in your experience, if they're going from maybe one model to another? Is that title still really important for people in the industry?
I think title is always important. I mean, no one really wants to, you know, take a step down, you know, on if you sit down and think about it, you're like, well, I don't really, you know, I've been a manager for so long, why would I want to go and work as a valuer somewhere else or whatever? But I think with a lot of the more mature businesses, and I use the word mature very loosely, for argument's sake, you're working for a big corporate is a bit like school, because you've got like the head teacher, and then you've got, or the head of department, and you've got some teachers there, and then you've got the, you know, the kids, and you have to get kept in line because you've got a lot of people, maybe that's 18, 19, 20, yeah, I guess even up to the age of 25. I only started my agency when I was 25, so I was a bit of a late starter. But it's like you still, you know, why are you late? Why is your tie all messed up? Or we do all these silly things that happen. But it's essentially you've got that sort of mentality. And then you want to be the manager, or you want to be the valuer, and then you want to be the manager, then you want to be the area director. And there's so many steps that you can go up. But when you actually look at a lot of the mature independence that's stemmed, a lot of them have stemmed from these corporate agencies.
Yeah.
They operate on a more mature level. So you've got pretty much the two owners or the two directors or whatever who run the business, who still go out and do valuations, and they still do viewings. So they'll bring in associates, or they'll bring in maybe a manager in each department, and then everybody else is associates. But you don't really, no one asks where you're going, why are you 5 minutes late for the meeting or whatever.
More grown up.
It's like a grown up agency. Exactly. So, we're all there to go work hard, get the deal done, because it's more important than a meeting about a meeting about a meeting about a meeting. So I think once you get to that point, title maybe, I guess once that switch is flicked in your head, where actually it's not so much about ego, it's actually, I might be an associate, but I'm earning 120 grand a year. You're a value or a manager, and you're earning 60 to 80 grand a year. I know where I'd rather be.
Yeah.
So
I've always found in a estate agency that there's a trigger point where you either become a lifer or you exit, and it's children.
yeah,
Having children changes it. I think I started when I was 19, and the title list that you just spoke about, trainee, neg, senior neg, blah, 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 all the way up to area director, that was exciting for me as a competitive, ambitious person in my 20s, finding my career in my 20s. I loved that. I was like, right, that's my next step. And then you had something to work towards. But then when you have kids, it's kind of like, it becomes totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because then other priorities happen. As a recruiter and as a business owner that you talk to as well, it must be one of the biggest challenges I would find, because those different mindsets from ambition for titles and career path then versus what benefits are there? What is the work from home time? And what is the holiday allowance? And like two completely different things, but arguably for the same role, potentially in the same company. Is that a challenge that you find in our industry as well?
Yes, I do. I think one of the things that a lot of business owners don't always maybe consider, because they, both parties look from one side of the lens, right?
Yeah.
So as a business owner, you want somebody to come in on interview and impress you and come in and tell you how amazing they are and how they're going to add value to your business and all of those nice things. But what they don't realize is, it's a shop window for everybody.
Yeah.
Like if you have somebody sitting opposite you with 5, 10, 15 years experience, and, you want them to work for you, you need to put your best foot forward.
Of course.
Because they're not just speaking to you. You think you're the only business in the area and you're the best thing since sliced bread. They don't care. Like, if you can impress them with your company culture, with your salary that you're offering, with the benefits that you're offering, and you trust them as an agent of 10 or 15 years to come in and do their job, they can probably do the job in less hours than maybe somebody who's not got as much experience. But they want to be able to pick the kids up from school, take them home. Doesn't mean they're going to just sit at home, twiddle their thumbs. They'll probably be on the phone, because at the end of the day, everybody still wants to earn commission. So I think there's a balance, because you can't be expected to work from home every day of the week, because that's also, in a way, probably a little bit detrimental to company culture. I think if that is the kind of business, if you're a high street agent, you've got an office and you're all together in it. But there also needs to be an element of flexibility where, because if you go and pick up your kids, whatever it says in your contract, say, yeah, great, you can go and do that. You're probably in the back of your mind going to feel a little bit guilty that you're slipping away to go and pick up your kids. So tomorrow you might come in an hour early. You might do that off your own back. If you want to work where you are and you enjoy it there and you value the business and you want the best for that business, then you're going to put the hours in, whatever happens, you're going to be making phone calls at 7, 8 o'clock in the evening because that's what you've got to do.
And that's the importance of getting the right people and then allowing them the flexibility and freedom to do the job. So you talked there a little bit about, as employers, us selling ourselves to potential employees. What bits of advice do you give clients that you're working for to try and, because presumably there's a part of your role that is coaching these employers to sell themselves. So what are some of the best pieces of advice that you can give employers?
Listen, we have many conversations with a lot of our clients. I think, in the beginning, a lot of it would just fall on deaf ears because, of course, everything's relational, right? Especially in my business, everything is super, super relational. Relational. So when I'm speaking to somebody who I've maybe just met or new relationship, and I say, I think you need to look at, maybe giving your property managers 1 or 2 days from home. Because in terms of what I'm seeing in the market, this is what's happening, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of times it's like, yeah, great, we'll look into it. Great, can you just carry on and find us somebody? I'm like, yeah, I can. Do what I can. Here's some options. Yeah, we want to see better people. Okay, well, that's fine. But those better people that you want to see are currently interviewing with X, Y, and Z businesses because their benefits package is better or their work-life, they get a better work-life balance. And so there's a lot of conversations around those. But I guess key bits of information or key bits of advice, I think it's always important for you to look inward, look at your business and put yourself in the candidate's shoes. If you were interviewing for this role and there were X, Y, Z other potential roles on the horizon for you, so which you're considering alongside these two, but they offering maybe more money, or they're offering half-day Fridays, or they're offering whatever. There's so many people do all sorts of different things, people trying to mix it up and do their own thing. So, but there are a lot of options out there, and if you want options, we can talk you through what it might look like or what you could do to present yourself better in the market. But I think it's always important to try and understand what makes people tick, even the people that you're just starting to interview, and then you can sell your business based on what they what they say or how they come across or what they ask for. You can sell your business on that front. But it is tough because people, at the end of the day, if you run your own business, you own your business, right? And you've always done what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got. But like people, it's difficult for people to just change out of nowhere and go, we need to give people 2 days from home.
It's the hardest part of agency for owners is to move with the market. And I don't mean the estate agency market. I mean the global market. Things evolve very quickly and change very quickly. And the way that estate agency has changed since COVID times and lockdown has probably been the most significant change, I would say, from an employee perspective, in the 5 years that I've done it. In the property market, we can identify that it's a seller's market or it's a buyer's market, depending on what type of market we're in. There's either too much stock or there's never too many buyers, or there's a lot of buyers and we need more stock, supply and demand. Where does that sit at the moment in a estate agency?
At the moment, so actually very, very similar to estate agency, we have exactly the same problems, right? There's actually not many differences between recruitment and estate agency. The only massive difference is in agency, you'll take somebody with hopes, dreams and ambitions into a dead object. And if they like the dead object, then great, sales on, happy days, right? Whereas in recruitment, we take somebody with hopes, dreams, ambitions into somebody else with hopes, expectations, and everything else, and putting the two together. That's it. People, it's tricky to work with sometimes. Absolutely, but that's the challenge. So we actually got double the challenge. But in terms of the market where it sits at the moment, it's very candidate heavy.
Okay.
There's actually less roles, but a lot more people in the market looking to make a move. So, which is great on one hand, because you can have a few really good candidates rather than just, I guess, speaking to people and putting them across and hope for the best. You actually now have a handful of really good. You can spend time with people, talk to them, understand what they're looking for, and then for the clients, you can actually say, listen, this is the market. You're not going to see 20, so you're not going to see, necessarily, or you don't necessarily have to see 20 or 30. You can spend forever seeing people, but, these are the 5 or 6 well-qualified candidates that we've got that you need to speak to for your job. And for candidates, I mean, I again had conversations with somebody today who's had an interview last week, and unfortunately they decided not to move forward with this candidate. And I asked them, I said, did you research the company? Did you spend time prepping? And the answer was probably not as much as I should have done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I always give all my candidates all the information, everything they need. All they have to do is take that info and go and spend maybe an hour online. You will find out so much you need to know more about the person you're going to see. So in general, my advice for them going forward was, in the market the way it is now, with the amount of people looking for jobs, you need to be the one that's best presented. You need to be the one that's best prepped. You need to be the one that's best spoken, most confident. You need to be the best version of yourself, because that's the only way you're going to give yourself a chance. Because if you don't do it, somebody else will.
Yeah, and I feel from a candidate and from an employer perspective, that's shifted quite significantly in maybe the last 2 years, because I am seeing a lot more open to work popping up on LinkedIn for seasoned estate agents, experienced estate agents, whereas 2 years ago, it seemed like it had just dried up. There were just no experienced estate agents anymore. And, there was jobs available. And from the owners that I was talking to in traditional estate agency, they just couldn't find good people anymore. But that's done a total U-turn, which is interesting. Are you seeing now a lot of redundancies happening at the back end of 25?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely rumblings of quite a bit, and then you start to dig a little bit and you find, there's a few. I mean, for argument's sake, the candidate I mentioned earlier on, who was 5 in the office, that business, from what I heard, have had a few redundancies. So it's nice for me to go and, essentially reach out to a lot of people and seeing what's going on there. But you also kind of don't want to. You want to help, but you also don't want to feel like a vulture, right? You don't want to go.
Yeah.
I heard there's some redundancies going on. Are you affected? Call 0800 Morné can help. I mean, but
that sounds like an advert from a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't boys call us today. No, but it's I think that there's a lot of restructuring. There's a lot of restructuring and structuring an agency, and I think there's been some of the more sort of senior redundancies will happen, and then from there on it'll sort of filter down until a lot of the agencies do a cleanup every now and then, where maybe and I think it comes down to culture as well, where maybe the culture has changed, and it might need something a bit more 21st century, etc. So they then sometimes you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So there's, changes that need to happen, and that then filters down, and some people will leave as a result of other people being made redundant because they'd rather jump than be pushed.
Yeah.
But also, they think, okay, maybe if this is happening, it creates a bit of uncertainty. So I think however those redundancies come about, it needs to be very carefully and very well communicated to the rest of the people in the business, because as soon as people feel that they might potentially, there's a slight chance they could be at risk, there's lots of other businesses out there that probably have them. So
kill your culture very quickly, can't it?
It's unsettling for a team if especially a big branch. I used to work at sort of 10 branch independent, and there was one particular lady. If she came into your office, everyone shat their pants. Why is she there? You know, it's like Chelsea players talk about with Roman Abramovich turned up at the training centre with a helicopter. Manager's gone. He's out. Like, it's just, sometimes you just know, don't you?
Yeah.
You get the feeling. So
You've got the Chelsea comment in as well. If people wonder what football team you support.
There's always a way. I'm going to start wearing Chelsea kit. Blue, isn't it? It's blue. It's on brand.
Yeah, it's on brand.
Yeah. What was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you a question around headhunting because we spoke kind of off camera a little bit about that. Obviously, on your LinkedIn title, it's there. It's probably more common in London than it is elsewhere. But I think it'd be good for estate agents to just understand the process of how that works in the industry. Is it only for big senior titles? Does it happen across the board? How much notice do you get from owners or from candidates typically? It'd just be quite insightful to get 5 minutes on that.
It's, you know, it can sometimes feel a bit like the Wild West because nothing's off the table. Okay. Like, you know, unless you're a client of mine, nothing's off the table. So, you know, by hook or by crook, I will get hold of people. Listen, I'm not going to, you know, sit and wait for them outside the office, and as soon as they get to the car, jump out and go, I've been looking to speak to you. I've got a job for you. But there's a few ways we do it. Obviously, there's some fantastic software. LinkedIn is one of them, which is great, and it's quite a common one. But it's just connecting with people, and I think a lot of people, you know, the message going out is, do not fear if you get contacted by a recruiter or a headhunter. The only reason why we would call you or get in touch is it's just there to create the opportunity. Like, no good headhunter or good recruiter will ever want to put a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah. Because
you do that, you're doomed. Like, candidate might take the job, happy days, you get your commission. Couple of months later, they're out of there. They're upset with you because you put them in a job they probably didn't want in the first place. The person who paid your comms is upset because this person only lasted a little while, and the
relationship.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all about that. So, it's all about creating opportunities. So it's all about having conversations, and, you know, feel free to give them a call and say, hi, I know you were trying to get hold of me. Find out what it is, because, you know, if we can help you earn more money, work in a better business with a better culture and all the other bits, happy days. But if it's not for you, it's not for you. It's a win-win, at least for us to get a no, to know that, okay, on to the next one. But how it generally works is getting back to your answer. So you'll say to me, Morné, I am looking for a valuer. My office is in Chiswick, for argument's sake. I will know, obviously, who my clients in Chiswick are. So obviously I cannot go and head on their staff. That'd be unethical, and also, it'll just be terrible for my reputation. Mm-hmm. But the people who aren't clients, I mean, sometimes I'll even say to you, okay, so your business is in Chiswick. Are there anybody in the area, or is there anybody in the area that you want? They might say, there's a really good valuer at XYZ agent, or there's a fantastic valuer in Ealing that I know that works in XXX, and I've seen what they. I'd love to have a conversation with them. Boom. First thing, I don't want to give away all my tips and tricks, because people might change the way they do things to avoid me being able to take their stuff. Yeah. But we've,
made the team page.
Yeah. So I tell you what, there's a few agents that started to take them down, I have to say. But I mean, that's generally the easiest way. And it's great, a meet the team page, because your clients can call you on your mobile and say, hi, I want you to come value my house. But it also means that I could pick up the phone and say, hi, would you like to have a conversation? But generally, whoever we identify, we will do everything we can to get hold of them and just have a conversation. How's things going? What's happening in your current business? Are you happy where you are? The reason for my call today, John, is pretty much one of those. But it's you say, I've got a fantastic opportunity with a local agent who's really keen to have a word with you about a role they've got. The role will pay up to X amount. It offers X, Y, and Z. These are some of the benefits. And, by all accounts, they just wanted to see if you were open to a conversation. And if the hardest thing to do is to take somebody who is really happy in their job, to take them out of that job. So I think for business owners fearing that the headhunters are coming. I think it's very it's abundantly clear from what we've done over. Josh has done it for years, but even me over the last 5 years is getting somebody out of a role or a company or a job that they love is near enough impossible. I mean, unless you're going to pay them £1 million to go and value some
I think
stock.
That's the key
To make them valued.
I think that's the key thing for owners to take away that are listening, is if you are looking after your team, if your attrition rate is very, very low, you've got a good culture, you pay well, you look after your team, you listen to them in their one-to-ones and you action their feedback, and you're trying to improve the business at the rate that the world wants improvements, then put the mobile on the website, because they're not going to go anywhere. But obviously, if your culture and your attrition rate, if you've got a 70% annual attrition rate in your team, you have a problem. And hiding the mobile is not going to save you from that problem.
It definitely won't. And pretty much exactly what you said, but I guess the other way around is, if you do not look after your people, somebody else will.
Exactly.
There's always somebody out there who is either has got an established business or are building a business with, who's maybe been through the ringer in a similar business to your terrible business, if that is what you're running. And they will do it differently. There's always going to be something better out there.
Yeah.
So I think, look after your people. Absolutely.
That's great. It's great advice, and probably not really where I expected this to go. I hope we talk about it from the other way, but you can flip it around really easily. So if you're an independent estate agent and you're looking to try and grow and to try and do that, looking for the best people, but maybe didn't know where to start to look, would your advice be go onto LinkedIn and start building those relationships that you've just talked about?
No, I would just advise everybody to give me a call. No, I'm a recruiter right there. I am absolutely. I mean, I think if you're building a business and you want to build a business with good, for me, good company culture, like most things, shit rolls downhill, right? Good or bad.
Yeah.
So if you, as a business owner, instill the right values, or you maybe you don't have a team yet, so you've got no values to instill in anybody, but you got anybody working for you and you instill the right values, you instill the right processes, and you have the right management style. There's so many things that people look up to you for. It's like parenting. If I've got 2 kids, you said you had 2 kids, although we're in the same family and they came from, in this case, the same mum, right? It doesn't mean that their personalities are going to be the same. So I think if you've got an established team, get to know your people, get to understand what makes them tick, because you can't manage everybody in the same way. You have to be fair. Absolutely, 1,000,000%, you always have to be fair. But you cannot expect to manage everybody in the same way. It's like, when you've got, incentives and stuff like that. Not everybody's going to want to go and, go to watch Chelsea play, for that matter. Okay.
Very few and far between.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that another time. But
Go bigger ground. That's all sorted out.
but the point is, everybody's different, and I think if you can understand that and you can work out what makes everybody tick, and you can spend time with them, you'll end up doing that to your managers. They will then in turn start to do it with their teams, and voila, there you've got start of a good culture, understanding people, working out what's good for who likes to do what, making sure that everybody sings off the same hymn sheet. And that is when you've got a good culture that you've bred from day dot. That's then when people start working extra hours because they want to get a deal through, or they make that extra phone call because they're thinking of what's best for the business, or they absolutely smash the viewings that week because they actually want to go and do well, and they maybe want your praise, or they want that incentive or whatever, but they do it because they want to, not because it's just a paycheck. And that's when it becomes interesting.
I think for owners as well, I've seen 2 different types of owners, and I won't say which the 2 people are, but you vividly know when you've got 2 different types of people. And one would walk into the office, they knew the new person, even though they'd never met, even though maybe me as the BM hadn't introduced them, but they knew who they were, and they'd just spend 30 seconds saying hello, welcome to the group, and it was a nice touch. And they made it their effort to be aware of new people in their environment, even though they were way up the food chain and, you know, they didn't need to know them from Adam. A couple of times the same owner would walk in and the new negotiator would try and register them as a buyer because that was always awkward. But on the flip to that, another owner would walk in like a fucking hurricane, set fire to the office, and then walk out, and that was their thing. It was like, right, do this, do that, rah, rah, rah. Never speak to anyone, leave, and then expect that was their superhero status that they would do. Very different, but from a cultural point of view, just having that person that spends that little 30 seconds getting to know you, asking you a couple of questions, or if you've had a really good quarter, you know, to get that call on your direct phone from the owner and say, sort of figures, like well done, you know, well done. It goes a long way. I do notice that. Those little things that owners can do that are free.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, everybody's sure that no one's got time, right? But I think is if you make time, and even if it's, you know, I think as a neg, to be fair, I was lucky. I did start at Foxtons, so putting it out there. But I was lucky. My
you can tell.
my area director was he was you know, he was a great guy, fair, but he, like, if you were wrong, you'd absolutely get it, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, if you did great, he'd be one of the first people to drop you a message or give you a call, say, well done, mate, good work, whatever. So I think
where you stood.
Exactly. And I think that's super important. I mean, like, again, like, whatever your management style, I think it needs to be clear. Like, you know, you don't want, if you start having mood swings, or, like, you know, one day you're happy as Larry, the next day you're like the world's biggest ass. It's like people, it'll confuse them so much, and that'll in turn unsettle them. So I think consistency is key. So be consistent, be authentically yourself, absolutely, but be consistent so people know where they stand. And I mean, there's so many things, like, in terms of company culture we can talk about, because there's so many different elements, and, you know, so many different things that we can look at. But I think management style, values, and I think one of the biggest things, again, that funny enough this area director said to me was, never do anything that'll compromise your integrity. And that was like, you know, stuff like that. When you hear that, and you hear it in black and white, you think, first of all, you think about it, and then you're like, wow, okay, cool. So, you know, and then it sort of takes hold. You think, okay, cool, this is how I'm gonna operate. And then, you know, whenever the temptation came throughout, you know, your career to kind of do something that probably you shouldn't be doing, you're like, oh,
those moments are quite important. I think it's a great way to summarize, because I remember being in a board of 7, and I used to argue quite a lot in the board, particularly with the owners, because I was quite passionate about what I felt. And one of the other directors came up to me after one of them and said, "Ian, you've got to stop being so honest in these boardrooms." And I was like, nah, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. But it goes back to what you said, you know, there's sometimes people playing a part, sometimes people trying to be a part, and it makes a big difference. And I think we are in the world now where authenticity, integrity, knowing where you stand, whether it's harsh or whether it's fair, but knowing where you stand is a real key part of feeling trusted and respected in a culture. And I think we were talking off camera, and we won't deep dive into it now, but the new group of people that are coming into employment, that are 15, 16, 18, that are now coming into employment, it's really important to them. Purpose, things like that is really important to them. So agency HR could be in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it goes right back to your answer to the very first question about care. Those examples that Ian talked about there shows that the leader of the business, or just a senior member of the team, but someone more senior than yourself, cares about you, cares enough to come and introduce themselves, cares enough to, you know, share with you that what we do around here is we never do anything that will, you know, bring our integrity into question. And I think if you demonstrate that right from the start, and then, as you say, consistently throughout your business life, then you probably can't go far wrong in terms of that bedrock of, the cultural bits that run throughout the business.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's Richard Branson who said, look, if you look after your people, and they look after your business. Yeah. And I think again, you're looking after your immediate management below you. They then in turn look after their teams. That those teams will then go out and look after your clients, 100%. and it's just everything is just rolls downhill, and that's exactly what you want. But make sure you get to know your people. Like, absolutely get to know your people. Relationship is key in, whether it's somebody within your team or whether it's with a client. I think everything is that. And if there's no relationship, then move on. Then it's probably not the right business or the right client, whichever way you want to look at that. Because I think, no one really likes working with somebody they don't have a relationship with. It's difficult.
And I think the phrase or the tagline at Rayner Personnel is "Make Mondays matter."
Make Mondays matter. Yeah, no one's more excited about that than Russell Jervis every Monday morning, where we make Mondays matter. But
he had a suit for it, didn't he?
Sometimes he does. Most of the time he does, unless he's on some holiday. To be fair, on holiday, sometimes we cover for him. But unless he's got some sort of specific event, But yeah, make Mondays matter. It's our tagline. It's what we believe. Like, generally on a Sunday is generally the worst night for a lot of people who aren't happy in their jobs, and that's generally the moment you go, oh, Monday morning. And if you feel like that, then it's, listen, no one always has to be excited to go to work on a Monday, but if you dread it, there's something seriously wrong.
And do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's nothing worse. You spend, I don't even know how many, you spend such a huge chunk of your life at work. It's no fun. I mean, it has to be. They say don't love your job your love. I heard that before, but although it's difficult with estate agency, because I think 99% of estate agents have fallen into estate agency. No one comes out of school and goes, I want to be an estate agent. But I think if you dread, in any job for that matter, if you dread on a Sunday night having to go into work on the Monday, then it's probably either not the right business for you, or it's not the right industry for you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. No, brilliant. Magic Morné.
Yes.
That's going to be your tagline.
I love it.
Yeah. No, appreciate you coming on. Really insightful through the eyes of someone that's really integral to a estate agency in the recruitment side of things, because there is a lot of moving around that goes on. And I think for me, when you partner up with a good recruiter, like partnering up with a good mortgage broker, like partnering up with a good conveyancer, makes your business better. So I appreciate your insight and your honesty, and really good episode with lots of takeaways for everyone. So thank you for coming on.
Cool. I'm so glad to have been here. Thanks, gents. It's been an absolute pleasure.
A massive thank you to Morné from Rayner Personnel for joining us today. You said in the intro, Ian, it was going to be a little bit different. It was going to be full of energy, and it was absolutely that, but very, very educational in terms of culture's a massive buzzword, right? We talk about it on the podcast. We've not talked about it at that level, I don't think, before with the recruiter. So actually, to hear the importance of that from a candidate's perspective just helps mean that we're talking about the right stuff, that we're trying to implement these elements within our business, the values, the culture, the flexibility of work, and that means that hopefully we're along the right lines of what we're doing. But I sat there and thought, well, actually, there's probably quite a bit more that we could do as well.
Yeah, I sat on a Zoom call with me and another avocado person, and then two other people that are employed 14, 12, 10 year, seasoned estate agents, and they're looking to come out of employment and obviously come on board at Avocado. Whether they do or don't is yet to be seen. But we were having the conversation. I'm always open with people, and where are you at in your head? Yeah. And their frustration was just the quality of their peers has just reduced so much over the last 5 years, that what it's meant is, as branch managers, the level of reporting that they now have to do is so out of control, because 8 out of 10 managers across the corporates, if you like, now are weak, which means the 2 good ones have to follow the same procedures because it has to be done all the way through. And for them, so irritating. And then I was speaking to someone else about the quality of, how the food chain works and the hierarchy and climbing the ladder. We spoke about titles on this particular episode. But then what I've also noticed, as I mentioned to you off camera, was the amount of open to works popping up. So I was really, really surprised when he said that it's a candidate market, because I just thought the quality was down, and if you were a good estate agent out there, you fall into a job really easily. But apparently that's changed as well a little bit.
Yeah, so he's saying that as employers, we now have the pick of numerous candidates. That's what he was saying, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We've actually had exactly that conversation with a recruiter for a more junior role than perhaps some of the roles that we're talking about, but from a more junior role. And we asked the question, why have we got people applying that look overqualified for this job? And they said, there is just no jobs. Obviously, you've seen the news about unemployment and what have you. But to me, what that means is it's a great opportunity to grow the team with some really talented people. But you've got to do it in the right way, particularly if those people are in roles where they're getting frustrated about the lack of ability of their peers. Because we've all been there, and we talked about it on another episode today about the Renters' Rights Bill, and all of these legislation things that come in damage the good agents because the bad agents or the bad landlords or the bad employees, you have to deal with them all the same way. So actually, that makes sense. If you're having to report on stuff that you do anyway, that's just going to really irritate you. So actually, there's massive opportunities. And we talked about giving people the freedom to do their job briefly on today's episode. I think that's one of the things that I took away. Get the right people, embed the right culture, and then let them do the job.
Yeah. I think it really comes down to that ambition that the individual's got, the values you've got as the company. And if you can align that ambition with your values and you get that key member of staff, they're worth everything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you just said, if you're growing your business and you're looking to add talent, it's an opportunity now, even if you don't have a role, potentially to just see what talent is out there, because sometimes it's not about does the talent fit with the monthly cost of the business, is do we have money in the bank account to buy that person for a year? Because we know that 50 grand recruit is going to add 200 grand to the turnover. Yeah. It's a good investment. Sometimes you have to see it as an investment rather than a cost. And it sounds like the market we're in at the moment as owners is an opportunity to look around.
Yeah, and I think the big thing to take away that he talked about, I think he said towards the end, relationships.
Yeah.
So, even if you haven't got the money to buy that person in a year early, probably now's a really good time to start building that relationship for forward thinking. So that's one of the things that I took away from it. But yeah, for me, really great episode, loads of key takeaways from a selfish perspective, but there'll be loads of people listening to this episode that are looking to grow as well. And I think that's a massive opportunity for us that we should be taking and being, I think, growing your team, investing in it at the moment, probably where the market is a bit of a brave move. But the sense I'm getting is that it's one that we should absolutely be doing and giving some serious consideration to.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Thank you for coming on, Morné.
Yeah, a massive thank you to Morné. As you know, we do this because we love our profession. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please share it out on social media, share it with colleagues, or reach out to Morné on LinkedIn. I'm Mark Worrell. He's Ian Macbeth. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much to Iceberg Digital for sponsoring today's episode, and we'll see you again next week.